I've always been a fan of a whodunit, and I found myself engaged with this one right off the bat because you want to figure out who is the dunnit of the whodunit. There's obviously some twists at the end, hence why everyone is asked not to spoil it, and they really don't disappoint. Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be continuing to rank all the Best Picture nominees ever, and we'll find out what the best movie for each year and all time are. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, I'm going to give you an agenda real quick. We start with the potent notables, which are just a few interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the movie. Then I go into the movie overview, which is where I talk about everything that happened in the movie. And then I go into the rank, the namesake of the show, where I rank the movie in 10 categories on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, all to find out what are the best Picture nominees of all time and who should have won each year. And today I'll be finishing the 1957 nominees with Witness for the Prosecution, the 1957 Best Picture nominee starring Tyrone Power, Marlene Dietrich, and Charles Laughton, with an adaptation of Agatha Christie's stage play by Larry Marcus and a screenplay written by Harry Kurnitz and Billy Wilder also directed. It was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, winning none. It was nominated for Best Sound, Best Film Editing, Best Director for Billy Wilder, Best Supporting Actress for Elsa Lanchester, Best Actor for Charles Laughton, and of course, Best Picture. Now, so far, 1957 has been a good year, with 12 Angry Men sitting on top with a 91.5, The Bridge on the River Kwai below it at 86.75, Peyton Place at 83.25, and then Sayonara at a 77. And of course, the Academy got it wrong again, but will 12 Angry Men remain on top? Let's find out how Witness for the Prosecution ranks among the all-time and for this year, starting with the potent notables. So as always, we start the potent notables with the box office info. I found an old Variety article that had Witness for the Prosecution making $3.75 million domestically for all of 1958. And since this released right at the end of the year 1957, that's basically the entire thing. And this was against a budget of $3 million. So at the end of the movie, there's a narrator that asks the audience not to spoil the ending for those who haven't seen it. But in addition to that, audience members received and were asked to sign cards that read, "I solemnly swear I will not reveal the ending of Witness for the Prosecution." I feel like they wouldn't do that now. It's kind of fun. On top of that, the press book, reviews, and various articles about the production stated that the principal cast members themselves did not even know the ending of the film until the last day of shooting, when the final 10 pages of the script were presented to them. Marlene Dietrich was so convinced that she would be nominated for an Academy Award for her performance as Christine Bowl that she recorded a new introduction to her Las Vegas show mentioning her nomination. She was apparently crushed after she wasn't nominated. Now, Elsa Lanchester, who was nominated, used to delight in broadcasting Marlene Dietrich's secrets. Although Dietrich was never secretive about her famous tape lifts, Lanchester detailed their use to anyone who would listen. One of the most avid listeners was Charles Laughton, who urged a makeup man to steal one so he could try it. The lifts were stuck to the side of Dietrich's head, where she wanted skin to be lifted. Then the long threads hanging from them were woven into her hair at the back of her head, forcing the tabs to pull the skin very tight. A wig then covered the network of tabs and threads. Lanchester joked that Dietrich wouldn't dare to pull or twist her face for fear of loosening a lift. In the film, one can actually see how Dietrich rarely breaks the cold passiveness of her expression and moves her whole body rather than her head. It's really goofy. That wasn't the only skin of Marlene's that I found some notables about. Apparently, in order to show just one of Marlene Dietrich's famous legs, an entire scene was written that required 145 extras, 38 stuntmen, and $90,000. That's some expensive legs. Actually, it's an expensive leg. So the lead actor, Charles Laughton, was apparently a joy to work with, despite a reputation as being sort of truculent. There's an anecdote from Billy Wilder's biography where he recalled the day that was set aside just for shooting reaction shots of the jury and courtroom crowd, which were composed of extras hired only for the day. Normally, the assistant director would read the actors' lines and the extras would react. However, Laughton, who was fascinated with the whole process of filmmaking, begged to help. So he came in on his day off and read all the off-camera speeches to the jury members. Not only read his part, but also the judges, the prosecutors, and even Marlene Dietrich's. And this is directly from the book. Quote, "It was an exhibition of craftsmanship such as Wilder had never seen. He believes that Charles Laughton had the greatest technical range and power of any actor, man or woman, whom he has known." So that was in the book. I guess Wilder really liked him. Now, the screenplay writer, Harry Kurnitz, did not like working with Billy Wilder, saying that Wilder is, quote, actually two people, Mr. Hyde and Mr. Hyde. And the people who work with Wilder, quote, have a hunted look, shuffle nervously, and have been known to break into tears if a door slams anywhere in the same building. Wilder is a fiend at work, end quote. So Harry didn't like him. All right, so the film followed the basic story of Agatha Christie's play, but director and co-screenwriter Billy Wilder opened up the story by including numerous scenes that did not take place solely in the courtroom as the play had, and changed the emphasis from Leonard Vole to Sir Wilfrid Roberts. I don't know how to say his last name. The Miss Plimsoll character who was added to the film, and the name of Leonard Vole's wife was changed from Romaine to Christine. So now we're going to head to some acting choices here. William Holden was the first choice for Leonard, but he was unavailable. Billy Wilder and the producer Arthur Hornblow Jr. then went to Tyrone Power, who turned down the part. Other actors considered for the role included Gene Kelly, Kirk Douglas, Glenn Ford, Jack Lemmon, and even Roger Moore. Eventually, Power accepted the role when he was offered both witness for the prosecution and Solomon and Sheba for $300,000 each. Before he could complete Solomon, however, Power had a fatal heart attack and was replaced by Yul Brynner. It's kind of interesting because the whole plot line for his lawyer in this movie is that he had a heart attack. Now, Ava Gardner and Rita Hayworth also were considered for the role of Christine Helm. And finally, several features of English law relevant to the plot have changed since this movie came out. Capital punishment for murder was abolished in 1965. The rule preventing a witness from revealing confidential communications from his or her spouse was abolished in 1984, and the rule preventing a second trial for the same offense after an acquittal was abolished in 2003. So I guess there's no more double jeopardy there. All right, so those are all the potent notables. Let's go to the movie overview. Now, at the end of this movie, it asked me not to divulge any spoilers about the ending, so I will refrain during my overview here, just in case some of you haven't seen it yet. So, without spoilers, we open the movie with Sir Wilfrid Roberts getting over a heart attack. He's coming home from the hospital and he seems a cranky, irascible old man riding with a very upbeat nurse who seems to be driving him crazy. This will be an ongoing bit throughout the movie, with the nurse, Miss Plimsoll, constantly trying and failing to get Sir Wilfrid to do things for his health, like not smoking cigars, not drinking brandy, and not taking on stressful cases like a murder case. He constantly sneaks cigars, sneaks brandy into his thermos, and almost immediately takes on a murder case. A solicitor named Mayhew shows up with a guy who seems very nonchalant about a predicament he seems to be in, a guy by the name of Leonard Vole. Sir Wilfrid at first is going to turn him down on taking the case, but then is convinced of the man's innocence after giving him his special monocle test, which is just him using the glare of the sun against the monocle onto Vole's face. We go through Vole's side of the story, and he's saying he was just friendly with Mrs. French, the victim, and didn't kill her, even though he was seemingly the last person to see her alive. It sure feels like all the evidence is pointing to him, but we also know this is an Agatha Christie story, so a twist is inevitably coming, right? But what if the twist is that he feels innocent, but he's really not? That was what I was thinking until we met his wife, Christine, played by Marlene Dietrich. Now, I know in the Potent Notables I talked about what Marlene did to make herself look younger, but man, it really worked. When watching her, I was thinking, I thought she was a star of an earlier generation. So I went and looked up her birthday and saw that she was 56 in this one. Look, say whatever you want about plastic surgery and taping her skin back, but she did not look 56. Anyway, when Christine, the German that Leonard married, arrives on screen, she seems incredibly severe. This is definitely leading you to believe that she's not fond of Leonard and up to something. Tried though I did, I couldn't help but find myself suspicious of her. I say that because she seemed too obvious a character to be suspicious of, but nevertheless, I was. The inevitable trial gets underway, and we see why Sir Wilfrid is considered a great barrister, or lawyer. He's able to get the better of both of the first two witnesses that the Crown, or prosecution, brings forward. Then we get a montage showing that we've gone a couple more days, and now the prosecution brings on a surprise witness, hence the name of the movie, Witness for the Prosecution. Said witness is Christine, Leonard's wife, who testifies against her husband. Now, I always have trouble with the defense or prosecution being surprised by a witness because they know the witness list. I suppose if the defense had her on their witness list, then the prosecution could call her. I don't know, it just doesn't seem correct to me. Anyway, everyone is aghast that she would testify against her husband. What works here is that our introduction to her makes us feel that this actually fits her character well, that Leonard is hopelessly in love with someone who doesn't love him back. But we're getting into spoiler territory here, so I'm going to stop talking about what happened in the movie directly and get more vague. I've always been a fan of a whodunit, and I found myself engaged with this one right off the bat because you want to figure out who is the dunnit of the whodunit. I will say though that this one dragged a bit. There's obviously some twists at the end, hence why everyone is asked not to spoil it, and they really don't disappoint. I don't know that I would say that it's the most shocking thing ever, but it was fun. It ends leaving the viewer feeling satisfied, and what more can you ask? Well, let's find out if my satisfaction leads to a good rank.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the movie based on 10 categories: story, acting, originality, film coherence, cinematography, score/soundtrack/sound, script structure and dialogue, character relatability, production value, and my rank. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. But before I dive into the rankings, I just want to say if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But anyway, without further ado, let's dive into the first category, which is story. And I gave story an 8.5. The story was a lot of fun, though it did drag a bit. A lot of times you can get a movie or story that is so focused on the twist that the ride isn't as fun. This wasn't one of those stories, though. I mean, it still worked. It worked and it was cohesive. So let's go to acting, which I gave a 6.5. There's really a lot of overacting in this. I'm sort of surprised that Marlene thought she was going to get nominated for this. Tyrone was good for the most part, but man, did he get dramatic at points. Charles Laughton was great, though. I like that he was more understated, but man, were there so many scenes in this movie where the ensemble was just playing everything huge, except Charles, that is. So let's go to originality, which I gave a 6. I don't think this is super original. I think whodunits had been a well-established genre at this point. I think the twist they went with here was decently original and therefore doesn't get a lower score. So let's go to film coherence, which I gave it an 8.5. I always struggle with the courtroom dramas where they have surprise witnesses and whatnot, because that's just not how criminal trials work, but that's really the only issue I have. Considering that this is a story that has to cohere really closely so as not to make a mess of any twists it wants to do at the end, it does that really well. I mean, that's pretty strong coherence there. I think there are a few little things like what I mentioned first, but also, I don't think this is a spoiler to say this, Wilfred didn't recognize Christine. Really? That was kind of a stretch. Anyway, all in all, really good. So let's go to cinematography, which I gave an 8. I thought this was really good. A lot of close-ups, but never egregious. I like that they would show what Vol was up against through some of the shots, showing him alone against all the people in the courtroom. Still though, it also felt like they sort of painted by numbers here and maybe focused on the close-up a little too much. So let's go to score/soundtrack/sound, which I gave a 6. It was fine. There were definitely some times where I felt like it was hitting some weird notes that didn't fit with the scene, but other than that, it was all fine. I don't know how sophisticated the score and sound could be back then, but this seemed nothing to write home about. So let's go to script structure and dialogue, which I gave a 9. Structure-wise, it was great. Dialogue was good too, sometimes a little hammy, but never felt like it wasn't real. So let's go to character relatability, which I gave an 8.75. I'm trying to avoid giving any spoilers here, so I'll focus on Sir Wilfrid and Miss Plimsoll. I can certainly relate to obstinacy and the desire to continue to challenge yourself. I also found his moral code relatable as well. Now, Miss Plimsoll felt a little off. She just didn't feel very real to me. I'm assuming it's because I couldn't relate to her very well, but she wasn't bad by any means. Anyway, yeah, it's a high score because I found them all pretty relatable. So let's go to production value, which I gave a 9. Until I found out that the courtroom setting, which cost $75,000 to build, was a recreation of a real courtroom in London's Central Criminal Courts, the Old Bailey. I thought they were just filming on site at a courtroom. So there's got to be some credit for that, right? All right, and the final category is my rank, which I gave a 7.25. I really enjoyed this movie. However, it also felt kind of generic as a whodunit. It had some fun twists, but still didn't blow my socks off. I guess my thing is, would I say this is a good movie? Yes. Would I say this is an Oscar contender? No. So altogether, that puts Witness for the Prosecution at a 75.5, which makes it an I'd watch it again. This puts it tied with The Racket, just below Miracle on 34th Street, and just above $1 Million Baby. It makes it last of the 1957 nominees. So there you have it. 12 Angry Men was the movie that should have won Best Picture of the 1957 nominees. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a list of my updated Best Picture rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. Now, if you're enjoying these rankings and you want to find out what will be the best movie ever nominated for Best Picture, or even just the best for each year, please subscribe and or follow, like the episodes, comment. You can reach out to me via email at info@therankpodcast.com. You can ask me questions, send suggestions. You can tell me what year you'd like me to do next. I will respond if you want a response. And if you really want to support us, you can become a patron on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast, where you can get access to all of our archived episodes. But without further ado, I rest my case. I'm trying to avoid giving any spoilers here, so I'll focus on Sir Wilfrid and Miss Plimsoll. Cut! I'm trying to avoid giving any spoilers here. Cut! Take 3. It's too many S words.